Hello again, everybody. Today we are talking about two SG Juniors. One of which you've seen on the channel, one of which is something someone let me borrow. This is a 1962 Gibson SG Junior. This is a real 62 vintage guitar. Technically, this is a 1962 Les Paul Junior, because these were still called the Les Paul at that point. This is a super cool guitar to get to play and mess around with. We're going to talk more about it. And this you've seen before. This is the Epiphone Yungblud SG Junior. It's a new guitar. It's an Epiphone, so it's a little bit more cost effective. They're the same woods, aside from this is a rosewood alternative that Epiphone's been using on this. For the fretboard, this is real rosewood. But mahogany, body and neck, dog ear P90. Obviously, this is a 62 dog ear P90, and this is all original on this guitar. One difference, so you'll notice looking at the bridge here, the posts on this guitar are very parallel. They're about at the same distance. Some vintage Juniors, what you'll see is where one stud is hiked way further down, which is what you see here. This is just a regular stop tail with set screws for the intonation. You just kind of adjust it one way or the other and get it close enough. Seems to play pretty well in tune. This one does have the lightning bar tailpiece. Some people like it, some people don't. So I feel like there's a lot of conversation about Epiphone versus Gibson, and it seems like there's a lot of questions that float around there. A lot of people trying to figure out, is it worth paying the extra money for a Gibson, or should I just buy an Epiphone? And I think there are valid points on both sides. My personal opinion is that I feel more inspired when I play a Gibson for a couple different reasons than I do when I typically play an Epiphone. There are good Epiphones, this one being one of them. This is a really good guitar. But Gibsons. So one of the big thing that I always notice, and I feel like you could blindfold me and put 10 Gibsons and 10 Epiphones in my hands, and I know which was which every time because of this. The finish on a Gibson is going to be nitrocellulose. Nitrocellulose finish, it never fully cures. A different way to put that is it's a little bit of a softer finish. It lets the guitar breathe in a way that the poly doesn't. I will say the poly kind of I think that's part of what gives this guitar its snappiness. It's a very hard finish, very rigid, this guitar almost feels plasticky up against this one, where this one has a certain warmth to it, and part of that, in my opinion, is the finish. It's probably a little bit of a thinner finish on this than it is on the solid color Epiphone as well. Having said that, being a vintage guitar, the pickup in it is really good. It's all original electronics here. Strum both of these unplugged a little bit and see if maybe you can pick up some of the difference there, because in my opinion that is part of what the difference between a Gibson and an Epiphone are. So I don't know how well that's going to come through with the microphone I'm using, but the Gibson is a little bit warmer and doesn't feel quite as loud. These are both very lively guitars. They don't necessarily feel dead. They vibrate a lot. But the Gibson, there's something magic to it. Like I said, this is a little bit of a snappier, a little bit of a brighter guitar, and in the warmth that comes with this guitar, like kind of a little bit of a roll off of the highs, there's a special thing that happens that it, at least personally, just inspires me a little bit. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a fair fight. I mean, we're taking a guitar worth thousands and thousands of dollars, rightfully so, and we're putting it up against a budget guitar. But having said that, for the vast difference in prices in these guitars, I think the Epiphone holds up astoundingly well. If you want an SG Junior and you don't want to drop $1,000 for one of the newer, more current SG Juniors, or thousands more dollars for a vintage one, even though it is worth it, this is a cool route to go. And honestly, with a couple upgrades, not a bad guitar that could definitely hold its own even more against the vintage Gibson. I think the upgrades that would be worthwhile to do on this, the quickest one is the pickup and the pots. The pots that they're putting in Epiphones these days are not terrible. They're CTS pots. However, if I'm going to replace the pickup, I'm replacing pots too. Especially Epiphone now is all quick connect. So if you look in the back here, there's a little pigtail where it just kind of clicks together. I get a lot more peace of mind off of soldered contact points. I'm actually thinking about upgrading the bridge and the pickup on this guitar. I've got a vague idea. Not sure if I'm keeping this guitar or not. And especially playing this now, there's something inspiring about a Gibson. The best thing, if you're curious, should I buy a Gibson? Should I buy an Epiphone? Go play a couple Gibsons and a couple Epiphones. I can tell you all I want about what my opinion is, this guitar versus that guitar. But at the end of the day, your own personal preference should be what wins out. Uh, I think there is one that's better, but I think if you play a guitar and like it, then it can be the right guitar. I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong guitar. As guitar tone enthusiasts, I think we all kind of get caught up in what's the best version of any given thing. And I gotta upgrade this and swap out that. But at the end of the day, if you're happy with the tone you're getting, then that's kind of the end of the conversation. I like swapping out different kinds of strings and finding out what strings react the best on a new guitar when I buy one. Figuring out what strings I like on that guitar, or what I even use different picks on different guitars sometimes. And I've known people that always buy the same Ernie Ball slinkies to put on any guitar they have and could care less what the picks are. And they're just as right as I am. They're a little bit happier at the end of the day because they didn't spend 20 minutes agonizing over what pick and what strings to use on a specific guitar. So at the end of the day, what we're really trying to figure out here, I suppose, is if the Epiphone can hang with the Gibson, the vintage Gibson. And I'd say about 80%. And I think with a lot of things with guitar, we're paying hundreds of percent more for 10 or 20% better. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think you do that with a lot of things. But to ask me if this guitar, this vintage 62 SG Junior, is worth, a factor of 5 times, 10 times more than this Epiphone, objectively, I don't think I can say yes. Like, this guitar comes close to the Gibson. And if you want an affordable SG Junior, especially since Gibson doesn't make a production model currently, this is a solid option. And this with some upgrades would be a fire breather. It already is, but put a different bridge on there and put a different P90 or maybe one of the dog ear humbuckers that I've been thinking about in here. Really cool guitar. But if you want something that feels like a truly special instrument, I don't think you can fake it. This guitar feels nice, but the Gibson, I know that I'm playing a real piece of wood. This almost feels like plastic. This feels like a handcrafted piece of wooden furniture. The finish feels nice. It doesn't just feel like a piece of plastic. It feels like a nice guitar. At the end of the day, if you can get your hands on the Gibson and Epiphone version of the guitar you're thinking about buying, that's the best thing to do. If you're trying to decide between the two, there's no substitute for getting your hands on both. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want, and I'm sure there's countless other Epiphone versus Gibson videos. And they might tell you, well, just buy the Epiphone and upgrade the pickups and the pots, which there's something to that. You're going to save money, and it's still going to be a really good sounding guitar. I think if you bought an Epiphone, upgraded the pickups in it, and had it side by side with a Gibson, let's say you recorded them and played them both back for me, I'm probably not going to know the difference. Even being in the room hearing it, I'm not going to know the difference. But playing the guitar, there's something different in the way a Gibson inspires me personally. That might not be the case for you, and there's only one way for you to find out. It's to play them. I want to say thank you to Perennial Sound Studios for letting me record here. If you're in Champaign, Illinois, and you want to take vocal lessons, guitar lessons, bass, ukulele, piano, you want to record music, this is the place to do it. If you feel like giving me a subscribe down below, please do. Helps me grow the channel, which I'm trying to do right now. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it.